Georgia Southern. So yeah, Clay Helton back for his third season, back-to-back 6 years, back-to-back bowl losses. Their OC is gone. Brian Ellis, he joins the board staff over at Alabama. Ryan Applin takes over at OC, but he's not new. He's not a new hire. He's been with the program for a few years now. So pretty much same coaching staff back. They're 88th in returning production, 13 returning starters, just 5 on offense. And I think that's important because the offense was the only thing that worked last year. Their defense was terrible, and Andy will be the first to tell you that's the case with every single one of Clay Helton's teams, although I cut him some slack about his time in USC because they never have a defense, regardless of who's coach. But so they lost. Their offense got hit hard. But here's the thing. I don't really hate the new look of the offense. So Davis Brin, quarterback, is gone. He did throw for over 3,700 yards last year, but he also threw 19 interceptions. 19. So he was prone to turn the ball over. He threw 24 touchdowns, but 19 interceptions. I asked you before, you think Dexter Williams from Indiana is an upgrade from Davis Brin?
Yeah, I think interception. Well, I mean, you look at 19 interceptions, is a ridiculous number. I think just keep taking care of the ball. That'll be better. We haven't seen much of Dexter Williams, but he was pretty highly recruited, and they're very high on him coming out. You can also run the ball. That's a plus. They didn't really have that from the quarterback, so that's an upgrade there.
Oh, yeah, we don't need headphones anymore.
Yeah.
All right. So yeah, I don't know much about Dexter Williams. I'm not going to pretend to. Andy thinks it's an upgrade, and I don't disagree. Here's the problem, and I shouldn't say problem. Here's what concerns me. Last year, Georgia Southern was 4th in the FBS in passing frequency, meaning they threw the shit out of the ball. Only 3 teams in college football out of all 134 FBS teams, only 3 passed the ball more frequently than Georgia Southern. This was a pass-first offense to the maximum, almost one of the heaviest pass-first offenses in the FBS. Now, the reason I'm concerned is Dexter Williams is more of an athlete. I'm not saying he can't throw it. I mean, we really haven't seen him get the opportunity to throw it.
Yeah.
But based on the limited action we've seen from him, he uses his legs a lot. He's a scrambler. And the way that this team is built this year is this coaching staff with Clay Helton and Ryan Applin, the new OC, are they capable of managing this offense run first? Because if you look at the pieces they got back, so check this out. So I just said this is a pass-heavy offense to the maximum. They lost their quarterback and brought in a quarterback that's more of a scrambler. They bring back all 3 running backs, or both. They bring back their top 2 running backs, so top 2 rushers. Their offensive line, all 3 interior pieces are back, 2 guards and a center, but they lost both tackles. So tell me that this team isn't built to run the ball this year the way they are now. So the question is, okay, on paper, I think they brought about enough pieces back to be a good offense. The question is, can they still have success running the ball instead of throwing it as frequently?
Yeah, that's a good point. It's a tough thing to answer until you see the quarterback play. I mean, unless they're planning on wholesale changing their style, then yeah, I do think if they're going to play the exact style they played last year, this offense won't be very good. So my assumption is with the change in quarterback means they're going to change the way they play. Like you said with Helton, he's had great offenses pretty much everywhere. When he was at USC, offense was never the problem. So I'm going to trust that he's going to do enough. I mean, if you look at their offensive stats last year, I mean, they weren't really good in any yardage categories. They were 87th in yards per carry, 81st in yards per attempt passing. Their success rates were really good, but other than like the yards weren't there. So, I mean, how good really was this offense? So, unless they're changing their whole system, they're not going to take exactly a leap on offense here.
Yeah, I agree. And I like what you said about Clay Helton. I mean, you take 10 proven offensive minds in college football, like you might mention his name. Like he's shown us that you give him a deck of cards, like whatever hand you deal him, he will return 500 yards a game. He can manage an offense. But now we get to the weakness of the Georgia Southern team. The defense last year, it was terrible. If you don't watch Sunbelt, if you don't watch Georgia Southern Sunbelt football, Georgia Southern's games were pretty high scoring. Not a lot of defense being played. Here's the thing: they did bring some people back. The entire defensive line is back now. When the situation like this, you have to ask. I mean, the defensive line wasn't good. Like, it's back. But like,
it's the case of returning guys that weren't productive.
Yeah, like, okay, like the entire defensive line is back. Sweet. But I mean, obviously, you bring back the entire defensive line that can only improve from last year. I mean, I doubt 19, 20-year-old kids get worse with an extra year of experience. It's very rare. So that's got to be a good thing. They did lose a couple linebackers, but they still return a few. From what I'm reading, linebacking core should be about the same. And they lost a couple DBs, but they added 2 starting defensive backs from Kennesaw State that were starters. So, I mean, the secondary might even take a step forward. So based on the returning the entire defensive line, look, this defense was terrible. I think we could say small step forward.
Yeah, I agree. I think at most it's a small step forward. But yeah, I think adding the secondary pieces is big because, I mean, this team, granted, teams ran on them a lot more frequently. They were still thrown on pretty damn well. I mean, their pass defense was worse statistically, even though it saw less action. So my guess is that it'll be better to a little bit with adding those guys. Again, that's Kennesaw State. That was a team that was playing FCS football last year. So when you add guys from an FCS team, we'll see if they're really good. But you brought it up before. As much as I trust Clay Helton's offensive ability, I don't trust him defensively. The year he got fired at USC, they were 97th in scoring defense. And I get it, USC doesn't usually have good defenses, but he had an opportunity to build it, and every single year their defense just let them down. The reason that this guy was fired from USC was because of his defense. So he's never gotten the right players to play defense for him. So I have a very hard time believing that he will.
Now we get to the good news for Georgia Southern, the schedule. It really isn't bad. So I mean, you're going to be 2-1. You're going to lose to Boise.
Yeah.
But they should, if they lose to Nevada, hit the panic mode. They're not going to lose to Nevada.
I think they'll go into Nevada. And
they have to. If they lose that game, I mean, Nevada's terrible.
Yeah.
They'll beat South Carolina State, obviously, lose to Ole Miss, and then at Georgia State's winnable. That team's a mess too.
Definitely winnable.
So I mean, I don't think it's crazy to say they could be 3-2 after 5 games, and then they could even beat Marshall.
Yeah, I think that's the point where it starts to get ugly for me after that.
At Old Dominion might be tough. I know a lot of people aren't big on Old Dominion, but I don't think they're going to be bad. I think the run defense is going to be good, which is huge because we just talked about how we think Georgia Southern's going to have to be much more reliant on the run this year. And the thing with Old Dominion is they bring back a ton of experience in the front 7, and they brought in some pieces in the portal. Old Dominion should be strong against the run. So going on the road in Old Dominion, I'd probably say that might be a loss. At South Alabama is winnable. I'm not big on South Alabama this year.
Yeah, we didn't really like their offense too much.
That puts them at 5. So do they win? Do they beat Troy or Coastal? Because they're losing to App State.
I don't think they beat either of those teams. That's why I have them at 5.
So basically, the way we broke it down is if you have them beating Troy on November 16th, put them at 6.
Yeah, but I don't, and I'm clearly very high on Coastal. So. Also, I know Nevada's not good, and we're going to talk about them today. That's not a game that's probably, I'd assume, their first home game, Nevada. So I'm gonna go. Yeah, that's their first game at home. So that's a tough game for them to play.
I don't think they're gonna beat. No, they play
on the road in Nevada. Actually, you know what? Nevada does play.
They play SMU.
Week 0.
Yeah, they play week 0. So
week 0.
It's not their first home game because they play in week 0. So yeah, I'll say under. But I think. I'm not betting this one because I could see them beating Troy and getting to the 6th win. And I guess you could say Nevada is a toss-up, but I don't even know. I think I'd pick Georgia Southern in that game. Nevada's a mess. And I'm pretty sure that's a decent segue because aren't we about to talk about Nevada right now?
We got Hawaii first.
Oh, Hawaii's first? Okay. So let's switch it over to Hawaii. And I accidentally deleted my notes on Hawaii, but I remember them. So I'll let you take the lead. But Timmy Chang back for his 3rd season. They bring back the quarterback, and the question I have with Hawaii, and this is probably a stupid question, but it's something to think